Welcome to the deep dive. Have you ever stopped to think, really think, about what it means to be a good person? Not just, following rules, but what's fundamentally going on.
Yeah, it's a huge question. And today, we're diving deep into that, looking at two absolute giants of moral philosophy.
That's right. We're pitting Aristotle, the ancient Greek champion of character, against Immanuel Kant, the Enlightenment powerhouse of pure duty.
We've got sources here that really contrast their core ideas: Aristotle's virtue theory, or Aretaic ethics, and Kant's deontological or duty-based ethics.
Our mission today is to unpack these two really different ways of looking at morality. We'll try to synthesize them, define the key terms so you can follow along, and get to the heart of their arguments.
Because the core question they're tackling is massive. Is being moral about being a good person deep down? Cultivating virtues?
Or is it about doing the right thing, following the rules no matter what? That's the tension we want to explore.
It's a fantastic tension.
Yeah.
And to really get it, we need to see where they start. Aristotle, he grounds everything in metaphysics, existence, purpose,
While Kant anchors his thought in epistemology, how we know what's right in the first place.
Exactly. So let's journey back first, way back over 2,300 years to ancient Greece, and unpack Aristotle's idea of excellence.
Right. Aristotle, 4th century BCE. His approach is called Aretaic Theory, from the Greek word arete.
Arête, yeah. Which means something like excellence or virtue or moral goodness. For Aristotle, being moral isn't just about following rules. It's about, well, the sources say, living one's life well and doing well in life. It's about fulfilling your potential.
And you mentioned metaphysics. That's key here, isn't it? How he saw reality.
Absolutely. He wasn't like his teacher, Plato, who believed in some separate, perfect world of ideas. For Aristotle, this material world, the one we experience, this is the real deal.
Okay, so how did he explain existence in this world?
He used this concept called hylomorphism. Sounds complex, but the idea is pretty straightforward.
Break it down for us.
Okay, hylomorphism just means that every physical thing is made of two parts: matter, the hyl, and form, the morphe. Think of a bronze statue. You need the bronze, the matter, and you need the sculptor's idea, the shape, the form.
Take away either one and you don't have the statue anymore.
Exactly. Nothing exists without both. And this leads directly to the idea of essence.
The essence, that's like the core whatness of a thing.
Precisely. The sources define it as that which remains the same throughout the process of change. It's the underlying identity. And this essence defines the thing's purpose. It's telos.
Telos, the final end, the goal. So the form, an eidos, as the Greeks called it, defines the telos.
Right. If you make a knife, its essence, its form, defines its purpose, its telos, which is to cut effectively.
Okay, so if that applies to objects, what about humans? What's our essence, according to Aristotle?
Reason. We are, in his famous phrase, the rational animal.
Yeah.
Our ability to reason is what fundamentally sets us apart.
So if reason is our essence,
Then our telos, our ultimate purpose on earth, is to live as beings of reason,
yeah,
to fully actualize that rational capacity. And importantly, Aristotle says this happens here in this life.
right.
No heaven or paradise is the final goal.
Wow, okay. So purpose is achieved on earth through reason. How do we actually do that?
By functioning well. The Greek word is ergon. We have to function excellently as rational beings,
And functioning excellently is arête.
which is moral excellence or virtue. And virtue isn't a one-off thing. It's a habit. It's something you cultivate through repeated good actions. The opposite of vice, which is a habit of bad actions.
This brings us to his really famous idea, doesn't it? The idea of balance.
The middle path, yes, the
Mhm.
mesotes. Moral excellence isn't about going to extremes. It's about finding the sweet spot between too much and too little.
Like courage, right. That's the classic example.
Exactly. Courage is the mesotes. The excess is rashness, just jumping into danger thoughtlessly. The deficiency is cowardice, avoiding any necessary risk. Courage is finding that intelligent midpoint.
But hang on. This middle path sounds, well, a bit subjective, doesn't it? My courage might look like your recklessness, or my generosity might be your wastefulness. How does context fit in?
Ah, great question. That's where phronesis comes in. Practical wisdom.
Phronesis. Okay.
It's the crucial skill, the practical intelligence, needed to discern the mesotes in any specific situation. It's not just about knowing the theory, it's about applying it wisely.
So it's about understanding the nuances. The sources mention doing actions. Do to the right person at the right time, place, circumstance, and disposition.
Exactly that. It's highly contextual. You need phronesis to figure out what courage or generosity looks like right here, right now, with these specific people involved. Think about that phrase, give until it hurts. Phronesis is what stops that from being just, well, foolish or even harmful.
That makes sense, but it also highlights a potential issue with virtue ethics, maybe, where you need the right conditions, a good upbringing, a decent society, to even develop this phronesis.
That's a very valid point. It's not something you're just born with. It's a project, a lifelong cultivation, and yeah, external factors play a big role.
So if you manage all this, you cultivate phronesis, you consistently hit the mesotes, you function excellently as a rational being, what's the payoff in Aristotle's view?
The ultimate reward is eudaimonia.
Which is usually translated as happiness, but it's more than just feeling good, right?
Much more. It's not just pleasure, it's human flourishing, a state of living well and doing well, achieving your full potential as a rational being. It's the fulfillment you get from living a virtuous life right here on Earth.
A complete system focused on being, on character, leading to earthly flourishing. Okay.
Now prepare for a major gear shift.
Right. Let's jump forward about 2,000 years. Immanuel Kant, 18th century Germany. He looks back at thinkers like Aristotle, especially the focus on eudaimonia or happiness.
He basically says, nope, that's not it. Any moral system based on achieving a certain outcome, like happiness or based on feelings or inclinations, is fundamentally flawed according to Kant.
He throws out purpose and happiness as the basis for morality.
Pretty much. For Kant, the foundation has to be something much more certain, much more universal. It's rooted in epistemology, the theory of knowledge.
How we know things. Okay, connect that to morality for us?
Well, Kant was right in the middle of this big debate between rationalists and empiricists. Rationalists thought true knowledge comes from reason alone, a priori, before experience. Empiricists thought all knowledge comes from sensory experience, a posteriori.
And Kant's take.
He kind of synthesizes them, but for morality, he comes down firmly on the side of reason. Moral truths like you shouldn't kill or you should keep promises can't possibly depend on individual experiences or feelings because those vary wildly.
So moral knowledge has to be universal, unchanging.
Exactly. It must be a priori. Known through reason, prior to any specific experience, it has to be baked into the structure of rational thought itself.
And this innate, rational, moral framework leads him to his most fundamental concept.
The good will.
Yeah.
Yes. His famous line from The Groundwork of the Metaphysics of Morals sums it up. Nothing in the world or out of it can possibly be conceived that could be called good without qualification except a good will.
Good without qualification. What does that mean exactly?
It means it's good in and of itself.
Yeah.
Its goodness doesn't depend on what it achieves or its consequences. It's intrinsically good.
Unlike other things we might call good.
Right. Think about intelligence or wealth or even courage in the Aristotelian sense. Kant would say those are only good for something. They're good if they're guided by a good will. Intelligence in a serial killer isn't good, right? Courage in a bank robber isn't morally good. Only the good will is good, period.
Okay, so we have this innate goodwill as rational beings. How does that translate into action?
As rational beings, Kant says, we are self-legislating. We give ourselves the moral law. We act according to our maxim.
Our maxim, like a personal rule or principle.
Exactly. A subjective principle of action. But the crucial test for whether an action based on that maxim has moral worth is the motivation behind it. Why did you do it?
Not the outcome, but the why.
Absolutely. The sources give that example of helping someone, say an elderly person struggling with groceries. If you help purely because your rational goodwill tells you that this is your unconditional duty as a rational being, that's the right thing to do, full stop, then the action has moral worth. It's done from goodwill.
Okay, but what if I help because I feel sorry for them? Or maybe less altruistically because I want to impress someone watching.
Now that's where Kant gets really strict. Those motivations, pity, desire for praise, those are what he calls inclinations. They're based on feelings or desired outcomes.
And that makes the action not morally good, even if the person gets helped.
According to Kant, the action itself might be fine, it conforms to duty, but it's not done from duty. Your goodwill was contaminated or weakened by these inclinations. The action wasn't good without qualification anymore because it was conditional. You did it because you felt pity or in order to gain favor. It wasn't done purely for the sake of duty itself.
Wow. So to be truly moral in Kant's eyes, I almost have to suppress my natural human feelings, my empathy, and act solely out of this cold, rational sense of obligation. That feels kind of harsh. Maybe even inhuman.
That's the criticism often leveled at him, and it's understandable. But Kant would argue that feelings are unreliable, they change, they differ from person to person. Duty, based on universal reason, is the only stable, reliable, and truly moral foundation. Only actions done purely from duty are good without qualification.
Okay, so how do we know what our duty is? If it's not based on feelings or outcomes, how do we figure out the rules?
That's where he introduces the categorical imperatives. These are the concrete tests, the universal commands derived from the concept of the good will. They tell you what your duty is. There are three main formulations.
Let's hear them.
The first one, CI1, is the formula of universal law. Quote, I ought never to act in such a way that I couldn't also will that the maxim on which I act should be a universal law.
So basically, what if everybody did this?
Exactly. Could you rationally want the principle behind your action to be a rule everyone follows all the time? If universalizing your maxim leads to a contradiction or a world no rational person would want, then the action is forbidden by duty. Lying, for instance. If everyone lied whenever it was convenient, the very concept of truth-telling, and therefore communication itself, would collapse. You can't rationally will that.
Okay, that makes sense. What's the next one?
CI2, the formula of humanity. Act in such a way as to treat humanity, whether in your own person or in that of anyone else, always as an end and never merely as a means.
Treat people as ends in themselves, not just tools.
Precisely. Every rational being has inherent dignity and worth. You must respect that. Using someone merely as a means to your own goal, ignoring their own goals, rationality, and humanity, that's immoral. Think about exploitation in labor or manipulation in relationships.
That one feels very relevant today. And the third?
CI3 is the formula of the kingdom of ends. Act according to maxims of a universally legislating member of a merely possible kingdom of ends.
That sounds more abstract.
It sort of combines the first two. It asks you to imagine yourself as both the creator and the subject of universal moral laws in a hypothetical perfect community of rational beings. Act in a way that would be consistent with being a lawmaker in such an ideal kingdom.
So, putting it all together, Aristotle and Kant are just worlds apart, aren't they?
Absolutely. Let's
Yeah.
try to synthesize the contrast.
Yeah.
Aristotle's all about character, about being a virtuous person. Morality is about cultivating excellence through habit, guided by this flexible, context-sensitive, practical wisdom, phronesis, to find the mean, the mesotes.
It's subjective, situational, focused on the person.
Right. Whereas Kant is all about the action and the motive. Morality is about adhering to absolute universal duties dictated by reason, the categorical imperatives, which stem from the a priori goodwill. It's objective, rigid, focus on the rule.
And that rigidity leads to some difficult scenarios, like the classic murderer at the door problem.
Exactly. If a murderer asks you where your friend is hiding, Kant's system seems to say you must tell the truth, because lying violates the universalizability test, CI1. You cannot will lying to be a universal law.
Even if telling the truth leads to your friend's death.
That's the stark implication for a strict Kantian. The consequences don't determine the morality of the act, only adherence to duty does.
Whereas Aristotle, using phronesis,
Would almost certainly say lying in that specific situation is the virtuous thing to do. It's the mesotes required by the extreme context, serving the higher telos of protecting innocent life. His system allows for that flexibility.
So for us listening, trying to figure out how to navigate our own moral lives, what's the takeaway? We have these two completely different frameworks.
It means you have different questions you can ask yourself when facing a tough choice. You can ask the Aristotelian question, what would a virtuous person do in this situation? What action aligns with the kind of excellent character I want to cultivate?
Focusing on being, on character development, on context.
Or you can ask the Kantian question, what is my absolute duty here? Can the principle behind my action be universalized? Am I treating everyone involved as an end in themselves?
Focusing on the action itself, the universal rule, the purity of motive.
One demands careful judgment and wisdom honed over time. The other demands unwavering adherence to rational principle, regardless of feelings or outcomes.
It's a fundamental difference in perspective. Okay, let's quickly recap the core tension.
On one side, Aristotle, virtue, character, finding the mesotes through practical wisdom, phronesis, leading to earthly flourishing, eudaimonia. It's learned, cultivated, contextual.
On the other side, Kant. Duty, the goodwill, following universal categorical imperatives derived from a priori reason. It's innate, absolute, focused on the action's principle.
Which leads us perfectly into a final thought to leave you with.
Go for it.
Okay, so Aristotle thinks morality and the resulting happiness, eudaimonia, are achieved through learned behavior, through cultivating virtue in this life. Kant insists that the very foundation of morality, the knowledge of right and wrong, must be a priori innate, rational knowledge we have before experience.
Right, learned habit versus innate reason as the starting point.
So here's the question. If being truly moral requires both a kind of universal rational understanding, maybe Kant's onto something there, and the skillful, habitual, context-sensitive application of that understanding, like Aristotle's phronesis, what does that say about our purpose? Are we here primarily to discover some absolute moral truth already within us? Or is the main event the lifelong, messy process of cultivating the wisdom to apply ethical principles flexibly in a complex world?
Innate knowledge versus cultivated behavior, or maybe some blend of both. Definitely something to chew on.